I remember an endless void of darkness, a blurry figure looming over me. I was given a clear set of instructions and quickly sent on my way. What was it all for, I wondered? I awoke in a room with blue walls, unfinished projects, and way too many statues of Nintendo characters. I was confused about a lot of things, but one thing was certain. I had to review every Final Fantasy, or I die.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
Welcome. This is Final Fantasy X. The double digits, the PS2, the year 2003, the 21st century. Square Enix goes Hollywood. Doesn't work. They come back. They say, we're making 10. Actually, 10 happened. 10 was in development for a while, pretty much almost in tandem with 9, because they knew they weren't going to have Sakaguchi. This was the end. 9 was going to be the end. And it was. And now there's a new team. There's a new theme. There's new everything. Final Fantasy has been in a battle with itself for so long as to what it is. Besides a JRPG where you kill God at the end or something. What is it trying to say? Is it trying to say anything? How do battles work? Should it always be this? We got the active time battle system. Should we be medieval? Should we be sci-fi? Should we be emo? With the start of 6, the evolution of 7, and then 8 where it just goes crazy sci-fi. It's just, what do we do? Now let's return to form with 9. What's the actual future? Are we just going to keep doing this? Are we going to do 7 again? And then we have this game. When I think of Final Fantasy and the world, like what that world means, I picture this. This game gives us a weird new idea of a fantasy world. When you think fantasy, you might think medieval. And then you have this steampunk fantasy of 7 and 8. And I've talked about in those games. The art style's a little weird, it's a little clashy. I don't think it works completely. And then you have 10. We have technology, but I still wouldn't call it sci-fi. It feels fantastical. It feels like another world. Not just like our world, but older. You know what I'm saying? And this is what you have as like what the modern idea of what a Final Fantasy world could be. I think it boils down to what this game started. This game took a lot of different steps, changing the game entirely, and you know hardcore fans are not going to be cool with it. But let's start smaller. Play this game on PC, on Steam, HD remaster that comes packed with 10.2. It's a good little bundle. And for the first time on this show, I dove into mods. There was a fantastic, very popular mod for this game called Untitled Project X. And it's just the fans going out of their way to continue to improve this game that already had a lot of nice improvements with the HD remaster. I actually have this for Switch. Hold on. I got this on Switch on Black Friday. And then, a lot of things changed since then. Basically, I'm at home a lot now. And I thought, well, PC's gonna be better than the Switch. It's just always gonna be better. Graphically, speed-wise, everything. So yes, I own 2 copies of Final Fantasy X 10.2 HD Remaster. Sue me. I got them both on sale. It was rough to buy the game a second time, even though I haven't played this Switch game, but I don't regret it. This game runs almost perfect. There's one big issue that I'll talk about, but let's talk about this mod. This mod improves a couple of things. Honestly, some things I'm not even sure about because I played the game with the mod and I don't know what it's like without it. So I might be taking things for granted. But one thing, the original game does not let you skip cutscenes. And that's very, very annoying. I don't know if this is something baked in and the developers could never figure it out. They could never do it, like it's impossible because even the modders couldn't do it either. In the remaster, you can do ×2 speed like normal or ×4, but the times speed does not affect cutscenes and you can't skip them. The mod allows you to double the speed to 8 times if you so desire, and it also works on cutscenes. That's the best you got. And of course, the 8 times speed is nice when you really want to speed things up. I would recommend this on Steam, but man, we gotta talk about the green screen. There's this apparently infamous glitch that almost affects all players on Steam during cutscenes, certain ones. Sometimes immediately, sometimes right in the middle. It could happen whenever. The screen goes completely green, one-tone green, like a flat, just green. And you can hear what's happening, the audio still goes, but you can't see the cutscene. And that just happens. And there's a billion different people saying they got solutions. Run as administrator, do this to the game, go into the files, affect this. Run in windowed mode, but don't actually window it. And I've tried everything. And it works sometimes for a little bit, but then it comes back. It's the classic PC gaming moment. You know, you have the best version of the game, pretty much objectively, except random crap gets in your way. So there were a couple cutscenes I missed. I had a YouTube video on the side whenever it happened and just went up to the part I was at and watched the cutscenes. It still kind of ruined some moments, not gonna lie. I mean, the final cutscene of the game green screened on me. Sucks. So let's get into it. This might be a long one, folks. Strap in because this is a big game. This is some people's favorite game of all time. You could say that for no, you can't say that for every Final Fantasy, all right? Not for everyone. It's like maybe people a little bit older than me grew up with this, and it's a formative game. People love it to death. Greatest story ever told, I've heard from some people. Where do I stand on it? Let's talk about the story. Compared to the past few, it ain't very complicated. There's some lore. I mean, the lore goes really deep for this game, deeper than probably any other game that precedes it. Of course, it got a sequel, so that helps. But like, the history of this world that they don't even tell you, there's tons of stuff. There's tons. I don't know the half of it. I know what happens in the game, but the key thing is, I know what happened. You understand? There are some moments in some of these games where it gets so surreal and confusing that I don't really understand what's going on, or I don't really know who the bad guy is or what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just kind of fighting. That doesn't happen in this game. You can have as much confusing things as you want, but I have a hot take. As long as the very basics of the story are understood, I'm in. This is the most Lord of the Rings-esque game that I've played maybe ever. And you know, Lord of the Rings, it's got the lore. It's got a lot of stuff going on. But it's a pretty basic story. You gotta get the ring into the volcano. That's what you gotta do. That's it. This is the story of Tidus, the boy with the pants where one of the legs is not fully legged, is what I like to call him. He finds himself plunged into this new world. So he thinks, like, what is this I used to be at home? He's like a Blitzball player. We'll talk about Blitzball. And this giant thing eats him up and destroys his town. This giant thing is called Sin. Interesting name. Very relevant. Maybe hits you over the head about what that is. He wakes up in this new world, and we got Bender from Futurama and Jake from Adventure Time is Waka, John DiMaggio.
What do you think you're up to? Yuno was acting funny. Yeah. She'll tell us when she's ready, so hold your chocobos till then.
He teaches him, he's like a very religious guy, He's obsessed with God. God is Yevon in this game. And wow, the undertones, it's not undertones, of religious commentary in this game. It's pretty bold, to be honest. Like, this, kids are playing this game, and I'm like, the stuff they're saying about the dangers of theocracy. It's like pretty deep. So yeah, you have these guys who praise God, Yevon, and there's this giant monster called sin. It's literally named after what sin is in real life, like the concept of sin. It's like a monster made from that concept. And what sin does is he destroys entire villages at a time. He roams the earth and appears random intervals and just kills. And it's like, what do we do? How do we live with this? Summoners are in this game just like any other, but they're incredibly important here more than ever. Yuna is the main girl, love interest, also main character basically. She's a summoner, and what summoners have to do is they have to go on a journey, a long adventure quest to get from where they are, train, become a summoner who's able to summon all these monsters, get to a specific place in the world, and do a final summon to kill Sin and save the world. That's the game. Wakka and you and a number of other characters are her guardians. They come into the group one way or another, and you are the guardians. You have to protect the summoner and bring her. It's Lord of the Rings, except instead of a ring, it's this girl, and instead of just two hobbits, you're a bunch of guys. And when you think of Lord of the Rings, you think of like really great characters bonding over a very long journey, coming together. Yeah, that's the same feeling I got from playing this game. We got to talk about what changed from this, and specifically the last one. 9 went out of its way to be old school, and I think it suffered in a lot of ways for that, but of course benefits from what people are looking for in those old games. The biggest change here, it's not the voice acting, but let's talk about voice acting real quick. It's not that bad. I heard this game got such a rat for like its terrible, awkward voice acting, and everybody links you like the laughing scene where they're like ha 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 ha. Yeah, it's awkward. It's supposed to be awkward. It's kind of actually like a heartwarming scene when you actually see it. It's near the beginning, and Yuna is like, oh my god, there's so much pressure on me. It's like, well, sometimes when you force yourself to laugh, it's like you just end up laughing. And that's what they do. That's what that scene is. It's not like them trying to be genuinely laughing and it's just that bad. No, that's how you would sound if you forced yourself to laugh to take the pain away. Like I said, we got John DiMaggio on Wakka. We got the guy who plays Ratchet is Tidus. If we're talking about do you prefer Final Fantasy with or without voice acting? Oh, 100% voice acting all the way. It's so much better to connect with the characters and just tell a story in general. Dude, the amount of text boxes. Every game it was like bigger and bigger text boxes. They needed voice acting, and I'm glad they did it. It's a natural step for an evolving series. It just works. And if you're talking about awkward cutscenes with weird voices, you're talking to a Kingdom Hearts fan. This is nothing. But anyway, the biggest change that I was about to talk about. This game is a straight line. Looking back, it's pretty impressive how open Final Fantasy has always been. The very first game. I mean, technically, it's not like what you would describe an open world game in modern terms. It's open, there's a field, you can choose to go left or right, but you do have to go left. Like, that's where the story is if you go left. If you go right, you might find nothing, you might find a cave with like some stuff in it. You're probably just gonna find some like really strong enemies that'll kill you in one hit. And that's the game's way of telling you, go left. But this game, there's no open field. I mean, it's a hall. It's one straight thing. Like if it branches, you go right, you find one treasure chest, and then you keep going left, and you just go, go, go. The game is, you start here, you get to where the final summoning is. That's the story. A lot of fans are not cool with that, and I'm sure they were reacting that way when this came out, especially after 9 was such a classic style game. I've heard 13 get a lot of flack for this. I'm guessing it's the same idea. I haven't heard 10 get a lot of flack, but if you didn't know, they're the same directors basically, so I guess if you're a 13 fan, you'll like 10, and vice versa. So yeah, it's kind of a gut punch. For the first half of the game, I was like, okay, well, maybe it'll open up at some point. I mean, we gotta get the airship. There's gotta be the airship moment, right? And then you meet Sid. And we got a Sid update right here. He's got the airship. He's Yuna's uncle. And that doesn't really come into play at all, except for him saying like, hey, protect her. And you're like, all right. He's kind of an angry guy again, but yeah, he doesn't have much story-wise to do. So whatever, Sid. It's all right. They can't all be amazing. So anyway, I don't really want to spoil it. You get the airship late. I'm talking like before the ending, which seems to be reoccurring in these last few games. And because we're talking about fully 3D rendered levels, there's never a field that you run through. When you get the airship, it's not that amazing moment that you get in every Final Fantasy before this where you can fly. I think it's amazing. You've been walking this whole time. It's taken you forever to go through all these areas. You gotta fight monsters and everything, and then you get the airship and it's just like, oh, there's that town. It's like so small. Oh, I'm flying. It's like an awesome feeling every time. And that doesn't happen in this, because when you get the airship, you essentially get a list of towns, basically everywhere you've been to, and you select where you want to go and you just basically teleport there. That's the airship. There's no active flying. That was disappointing, truly. But then again, we have full 3D environments. It was kind of impossible for that to happen. That's really my only complaint with linearity, though. I have no complaints about a game being linear, because one thing I've criticized the series for since day one was character development suffering from the actions of the game being free. If a game's open, if a game lets you choose, if a game lets you customize your party, if party members leave, if party members are optional, the story suffers a little bit for every one of those decisions. You cannot develop a character when another character can be put in that person's place depending on the playstyle. Not only is this game linear, but when you get your full party, they never leave. You are a full group for the entire game. One sec. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but like, your party stays your party the whole game. I think that's really important. And it was something I've honestly wanted for this entire time playing this series. It just lets the characters breathe. It lets them do whatever. It lets them interact with everything that happens instead of some things or some characters. And the result is I love this story and I love these characters, probably more than anything else in this series. What are the disadvantages? Well, you don't get to walk around a field aimlessly. So other characters I didn't mention, Lulu, the black mage girl, who's like good friends with Waka, and I'm not sure if they were a thing at some point, but like Kimari, which was like the first guardian of Yuna, so he's very protective. He's like, don't go off with her, don't do that, Yuna, be careful. You have another character called Auron, who's a little mysterious because he was with you before you got sucked up by Sin, and I guess he did too, and then you find him in this world, and he treats you a little differently, and you don't really know what's going on. He's a mysterious man in a red cloak, broken arm, eye patch. Something's up with this guy. It's all about Yuna. We have to make sure Yuna's okay, bring her in, and we have to do everything, and I'm not going to tell you all the details. You have to listen to me, because I know what's up. And honestly, he was sus, but he was great, both in the story and in battle. Then there's Riku, not from Kingdom Hearts. It's Riku with 2 Ks instead of 1, and she's a girl. She is part of the Albed, which are these group of people who are kind of against the religious people. Your first exposure to these guys are people talking crap on them. Basically, oh, those Albed people, they like call them names like, it's kind of, I think it's a commentary for racism. It's another big topic they're throwing into this game. But they're hated, and they all sound like thieves and like debaucherers. And then when you get like sucked up by Sin and plopped into this world, then you get saved by Riku, and you're like, oh, okay. And she's an Albed, and you're like, oh God, I'm stuck on the ship with all the Albed. And then you just find out that like they're kind of just people. They're not terrorists. They're all they're all called terrorists. They're treated like terrorists, and you get attacked by them a few times, so you're like, you really think they're like bad guys. And then you meet Riku, and you start to see where they're coming from, and you start to find out other things about what's going on around here, and you're like, these guys are not really evil. And of course, Waka hates the Al Bhed, so Riku joins the party, and he's like, she can't be a guardian. What is God gonna think? Like, Waka, relax, man. There's some tense moments between them a little bit, and it was good to see. I really want to like break down the story, but I'll have a separate spoiler section for that. The game is great, story-wise. Let's talk about gameplay. Another major change, that classic active battle system. Been there since 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and now it's something new. You can spend as much time as you want looking through the menus to choose your attack, and it's also back to 3 party members, which I wasn't so sure about, and then 9 brought back 4, and I was like, I don't really know if it's better or worse, I'm not sure. But this has a really cool and fun twist to the battle system. Like I said, the party is with you 100% of the time, all the way through. In battle, you can attack, or you can decide to swap a character out with another character, and then they can attack immediately. And that changes everything. That just changes the entire game and how it's played in every way. Every party member's at your disposal all the time. So it's not just story-wise that they're nice, it's gameplay-wise that they're nice. It works perfectly. Does it limit your freedom? Not really, because you're free to make these guys however they need to be and use them however you want, or just not use them. I think they cracked the code and they finally figured it out. It's great. I mean, it was just fantastic to play with this, because if there was somebody who couldn't do what they needed to do, you immediately swap them out with somebody else. You don't have the feeling of like, I should have brought that blob guy who knew this magic spell and it would have got me out of this. I wish I knew that. No, everybody, you are one massive team and you can just all work together all the time. I'm telling you, man, the team dynamic in this is everything. There's so much personality in the game, in the world, and in the characters, and it's all thanks to these decisions that they made to make the story better and the gameplay different. You might prefer active battle. I don't know if I do. I mean, I've had a lot of time with the active battle system. I don't know if this specific system makes another comeback, maybe in 10.2, but I loved it. I loved it. There's this like branch to the combat system that I have different feelings about. The summoning system. Of course, Yuna is your summoner, and you can actually summon the monsters like you can in the other games. But when you do that, it's not like one attack, like in most games. You replace all 3 of your party members with the summon, and they have their own sets of abilities. Not a lot. You have to like upgrade them, which I didn't do because it was a little bit confusing about how to do it, and I never really cared that much. Summoning in classic form takes a long time, cutscene wise. You have to. I definitely did the ×8 speed thing. Thank you, mod. And there's only a small handful of them, and there's a couple optional ones. And it does change the game. Like, they're super powerful, at least the later ones, not so much the earlier ones. And there's some points in the game where you get challenged by other summoners, and it's like a Pokemon battle. You throw out your guy, they throw out their guy, and you fight. Just the way the summons work. There's no team element. You're the one guy, and if they have a better one, like in Pokemon, if you got a fire type, they got a water type, you're done. It wasn't as fleshed out, let's say, about as the normal battle system. And it also took forever. If I didn't have the mod that could skip cutscenes, technically, it would be tedious as hell. So I rarely did it. It's alright. Each of the characters basically have their class. Like Yuna's White Mage Summoner, Lulu Black Mage, Titus is an all-arounder. Auron is like a guy who deals a ton of damage and can take a ton of damage. So he's just like the best. He's like objectively the best character and probably the most useful character in the series. I'm just going to give him that award. I'm going to stick that on him. Little badge on his chest, like Auron MVP. He just kills things. He kills everything in his path. And he's got so much more health than everyone else. And he can take anything. Bosses will do swooping attacks. kill the other 2 members, and Auron will be left standing, and I'll literally just live because he lived and he can now revive them and stuff. It was great. So I say there's a lack of customizability. Let's talk about what you can actually do, because it's not as basic as you might think. There's no levels in this game, which scares me because the last time that happened was 2. We don't like 2. We don't think about 2. The way you upgrade characters is on this thing called the sphere grid, which is essentially a skill tree, but way more dynamic and way more interesting. I tend to not like skill trees in games. I feel like they're just a little bit boring. Like, a skill tree is usually pretty basic. Like, you can go left or right, and left will be more strong, and the other one will be more not strong, but you'll be defensive. And it's like, okay, guess I'll go left. But this is way more in depth. The sphere grid is a massive board of tons of branching paths, almost like a board game, and you have these little locks that you can't get through quite yet, and every character is on a spot. They all start super spread out, and basically every space on this board is an upgrade, like health. Get more health, get more magic, get more attack, whatever. So when you level up, you don't go from level 0 to 1. You just gain one move that you can do on this board. And as you progress through the game, you'll overlap with other characters and start learning what they learned, and you will get these basically keys to unlock these doors to access stronger abilities. Everything you gain from your character is present on this board, whether it's stats or actual abilities, magic, or whatever. And then you can get the really rare stuff that allows you to like teleport to cover way more ground and really start to mess with your character and create something crazy and overpowered. At first it was just kind of, alright, I'll get more stats. But of course, as the game spirals, you can really build some crazy stuff. So here's an issue that'll tie into what the sphere grid is about. There's certain characters in this game that are just not as useful as others. I feel like most would probably agree with me. Like I said, Auron, absolute beast, just required in basically any fight. Titus is good. Yuna is like the healer, so she's always in. Wakka's pretty good. At a certain point in the game, the other characters are pretty clearly not helpful. Lulu is the black mage, so she's got all the magic. But eventually she's just too weak. Her final Firaga spell does like half as much damage as Auron's swinging his sword. And that's when fire's like super effective. So it's like, Lulu, I'm not going to use you anymore. Kimahri, he's kind of like a blue mage, but they really cut the complexity of what a blue mage is, and he's not ideal. He doesn't do much. Riku is a thief, and I gotta be real, I never liked thieves. That's probably why I didn't like the main character of 9 so much, because he's a thief. You got a thief guy in 6, you got a thief guy in 2. I don't like thieves. What am I gonna do? Steal a potion? That's what it boils down to. They don't have cool moves that actually help in a fight. Riku's attack is like under 100 damage every time. It's Kimahri, Lulu, Riku. Didn't use them. Lulu lasted longer than the rest, but anyway. So on the sphere grid, I got Lulu all the way up to where all the Aga spells are. And this was at the end of the game. I had already reached like the end of Yuna's pathway. She has Holy, she has Kiraga and all that stuff. But she's never really been good at attacking, almost purely magic healing and buffing. Then I found this very, very, very rare. I think I only got like 2 of them in the entire game. A sphere that lets you teleport to another character on the board. And I was like, oh my god. I teleported Yuna to Lulu and basically used her to just branch Yuna even more. So I got Yuna all the level 3 black magic spells. And then I saw that I can go down more, and there's a secret lock thing that I unlocked, and it gave me double cast, so I can cast 2 black magic spells. All of a sudden, Yuna, with the highest magic stat in the game, went from not being able to attack at all to blowing people away with magic. More than Lulu ever could dream of. Lulu spent the whole game getting to that point, and Yuna just swooped in and embarrassed her. Yuna became MVP. It was her and Auron's game. It was them, and then Titus was there for support, let's be real. She was an absolute beast. All of these characters also have special items, special weapons, like their top tier celestial weapons. And I got the one for Yuna that let her cast magic with a price of 1 MP every time. So I was double casting and doing Holy. Holy is supposed to cost like 85 MP, and it was just 1, and I was just doing 20,000 damage. Oh my god, it was so awesome. The combination of the sphere grid and the way the characters work, it gave me this feeling of progress and accomplishment I did not feel since Final Fantasy V. If you remember that review, I thought that the job system worked so well in barreling into just you being a massive god at the game, just like killing everything. And that might be very well intentional, but it really makes you feel like you broke the game. That's the important part. I know it's intentional. I literally got an item that lets you cast things with 1 MP, but it's fun. It's just fun anyway. And it's not like it made the boss trivial, but the boss was kind of easy. Let's be real, the final boss, But I ain't complaining, man, because it was my progress and my side quest thing that accomplished all that, so I don't feel bad about it. Yeah, so story-wise, character-wise, gameplay-wise, upgrade-wise, this for me nailed it on every level. I think it's the best one. I understand where people are like not about that whole linear life. They want the open field to run through, but like, it's the PS2, it's a new era. They wanted to use the graphic capabilities to, actually create a world and not continually running on flat JPEG backgrounds for the 4th game in a row. You understand that, right? We're out of the PS1. This is a new era. It's a new thing. I've been waiting for them to do stuff like this the whole time. I'm going to talk about some story spoilers now. I've explained what the story is. You get it. It's pretty basic. It's pretty nice. I'm going to go into some more interesting stuff that I don't think you should know about until you play it. So just, skip it. I haven't really talked about Titus, the main character. But like I said, it's really more Yuna's story than his, at least in my eyes. It's confusing where he came from. Like, that's another world? Is it another dimension? How did he get there? By being eaten by sin? I don't know. And you find out that Auron's holding a lot of information, like I said, and he tells you that Sin is your dad. The giant monster is your dad. Now, I didn't mention his dad at all. Titus has a lot of daddy issues. He's not like... He hates his dad, and he says it a lot. Like, once he finds out Sin's his dad and, like, we're gonna kill him, the characters are like, oh no, we have to kill your dad? And he's like, I don't care, no problem with me, let's do it. He's not happy with him for a number of reasons. But then it's like, what do you mean Sin is my dad? What do you mean? How? I don't understand that. There's a lot of moments like that. So there's some parts of confusing, but it all comes together because you're continually finding out more, and then at the end, things really start to make sense. There's this guy called Seymour, and you look at him and he's like, he's evil, isn't he? What is this? He's got these like purple veins that are popping out of his forehead. I wonder if he's evil. He's got like these hair strands. How much hairspray do you need to do that, to pull that off? I don't know, but you're evil.
Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
He almost tricks us into marrying him and Yuna. Because, like, people are really depressed because of the whole giant monster killing everybody. But if we get married, then it'll be like a symbol of peace among people. And everybody will be happy. We should get married. This is like a major point in the game where it's like, are you going to do that? And she's like, I guess I should? It's very weird. But we find out he's a bastard quick enough to stop the wedding. Another thing that Yuna does as a summoner is she sends people. Now, when you die, you can still exist on the planet. It's weird how it works. I'm not sure. Like, if you get shot or something, I don't know what makes you come back. But you're not at peace. You're not in heaven or whatever until a summoner does a dance. They do a dance and they send you. So Yuna, part of the journey, is hitting these spots that Sin completely destroyed and dancing so that you can send them away. It's kind of messed up. And also funny because it's a dance. And then you find out that I think if you don't get sent, you turn into a monster. But I don't really know why or when that happens. Again, the details are fuzzy and weird. I'm sure you can look them up and everything, but story-wise, the plot makes sense. Point is, you turn into a monster, and all these monsters you're killing were people at one point killed by sin. Turns out, Auron is an unsent. Why is he not a monster? I'm not so sure. But he's not sent. Auron, how did you die? Well, I guess your broken arm and eye, I guess that checks out, but what happened? It doesn't really open up. There's one point where you can actually access like the far plane. Like there's a spot in the world where everybody goes and they can talk to dead people. It's really cool. You can see your dad. The other characters have little moments with other people that died. It's like a really sad moment. And Auron's just like, I'll pass. I'm not going to go there. So you're like, And I hadn't realized that by playing Kingdom Hearts 2, I've actually spoiled this for myself. And I didn't even know. They put Auron in the underworld, Hercules world, because he's undead. And that was the whole gimmick for that whole area. And it flew over my head because I didn't know Final Fantasy X. Well, now I know. So you talk to Seymour. He's big with the religious rulers of the world, and Waka is all about him. Waka loves him, and he's like, Everyone else is like, dude, Seymour is like a total loser. We don't want her marrying Yuna. Come on. At a major turning point in the game, when you see Sid and when you reach the Albed base, you find out that summoners die at the end of their journey. And you're like, what? I guess I didn't really think about this enough, but what do you mean they die? Like this has happened. Yeah, it's a tradition. Summoners do this all the time. I don't know why I didn't think about it. But if they've been doing this, why is Sin still here? Well, it's a vicious cycle. To defeat Sin, you must make the ultimate sacrifice. Summon the final Aeon to destroy him. But this in turn kills you. Oh, and then the world's safe again, right? No, Sin comes back later. Then what are we doing? So you find out that, of course, Tidus and Yuna have this budding relationship, and it actually feels more natural in this than every other game before it. Probably because they can interact the whole game, and like I said before. So you find out, and Yuna knew this. Everybody knew this but Tidus. So you're like kind of with him, like, what the hell? Why didn't you guys tell me? This is horrible. We're just bringing her to her doom, and also it's not going to save the world. Like, why do we do this? And it's just like, this is the teachings. This is what God says has to happen, and like, Waka gives you the whole talk because he's like a religious nut. We got to figure out something. We got to kill Sin for real. How do we do that? My dad's Sin. Maybe I could talk to him. That was a big moment where the game starts to really commentate on like, maybe we should be free to do like other things besides just listen to whatever a guy in like a pointy hat tells us. Maybe not everything's doom and gloom. Maybe not everything's like doomed to fail all the time, just because that's how it always been. You get to the end of the game and find out your dad and Auron basically died doing the same thing you were doing. And Jecht is Sin. I forget the reason why, but it actually does explain it. But you're like, okay, it's the final Aeon part. We're doing this. Everybody on board. And Waka actually goes through a lot of emotions too. Like he watches his religion like crumble before him. He finds out people were lying to him, and it takes him a while to really like accept that. All the characters have these great, well, okay, not all of them. The main guys that I mentioned, like basically the ones that aren't as useful in battle, have less character development also. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but Lulu, Riku, and Kimahri, they don't do that much. Like over the course of the game, Waka finds out that, okay, Albed aren't evil terrorists who like hurt people for no reason. They knew that the Yevon followers were lying, and when they kidnapped Yuna, they were trying to protect her so she doesn't kill herself. There's a lot of big questions, okay? That's my point. The final boss, you fight your dad in Sin, and the music is like a heavy metal track, like with screaming. It's not a song you've heard in Final Fantasy before. You should at least look it up. Like it's just... It's super intense. I should mention, the music in this game is fantastic. And it's the first time Auron And it's the first time Nobuo worked on the game with help. So I think maybe people were wondering if this was going to be as good. It's as good. The music kicks butt.
Go into the sand and the dust in the sky. Go now. There's no better plan than to do or to die.
So, regardless of all the story that I talked about, it boils down to killing God. Again, like every other game. You kill Yevon, the god of all of this. Bringing people sin because of their sins like they deserve it or whatever. The cycle ends, and the eternal calm comes across the land, and everyone's united, and everyone's happy. And Titus disappears, because he's not from this world. He was a faith, which is the word faith spelled differently. Again, they're not trying too hard to be subtle, but it makes sense. He's like from a dream world, so he can't exist here anymore. Auron dies for real. He gets sent away, as he should. And Titus is gone. And they usher in a new age of calmness and not destruction. And it's a great ending to a great journey about death, about belief, about seeing things in other people you didn't see before, about carving your own path. Damn. I love this game. I'm not sure what else to say. One thing I didn't mention about linearity, what do side quests look like in a game that doesn't really let you travel? Well, once you get the airship and you can, that's where all the side quests are. Pretty much. Like, you just don't really get them until the end of the game. There's the one point where I saw you can branch off and go down like a special cave that's optional, but other than that, side quests are completely stuffed in the end. And they're pretty good. There's some good stuff in there. I actually enjoyed the Chocobo stuff, which I heard people hate. Like, people call it the worst minigame in the entire series. You're racing Chocobos, it's not so bad. I liked it. There's this castle you can go to, which is where you can find the mirror to get access to the celestial weapons, which is a whole branching massive side quest. I didn't do much else, aside from getting the optional Aeons. That was fun too, because most of the other side quests involve capturing enemies. At one point in the game, you get the ability to capture fiends, like bad guys, and basically all of these side quests, including the celestial weapons. I only got the weapon for Yuna, because all of the other ones required more capturing enemies, and I didn't want to do that. Yeah, I'm talking like Pokedex stuff, like you have to hunt down every enemy, and specifically kill them with this type of weapon, and then bring it to the guy, and then you can get an item that can upgrade the weapon. Not a fan of that, and I pretty much entirely skipped it. Everything with that arena, I don't need to do that. Sorry. I was overpowered enough. I couldn't imagine what the final boss would be like if I had all celestial weapons and all of these abilities. Oh my goodness, I forgot to talk about Blitzball. Okay, so Blitzball is the new mini game in this one. It's the new triple triad, new Tetramaster. It's not a card game anymore. They went sports now. They invented a new sport, underwater soccer, kind of. In 8 and 9, you could approach any NPC and press a button and challenge them to a card game, and it would be really quick. But now, you can press a button on any NPC and recruit them on your soccer team to play underwater soccer, Blitzball. This is a much deeper, more complex game than any of the ones before it, and you can play it basically at any save point, and there's a whole league that you can go through, and it's pretty in-depth. There's like a really long tutorial at the beginning of the game. Here's my thing with Blitzball. Too long. Takes too long. I like the old, quick, snappy, sort of addictive collectible card game thing that they were doing before, even though Tetramaster sucked. Blitzball, it's pretty confusing and very difficult at first. Like, you need to recruit the right guys and really know what you're doing, which is, it takes a while. And basically, one game of Blitzball, that's gonna cost you like 20 plus minutes. There's like a halftime, there's like a regroup. You have to stop the game and tell people what to do. It's a whole thing, and that didn't appeal to me. A lot of people really like Blitzball, and I get that, but at a certain point I thought to myself, I'm going to launch this game and I'm either going to progress the story or I'm going to dump a lot of time into Blitzball to figure it out, and I just didn't want to do the latter. So I went with the game, and I basically never played Blitzball. I gave it a good shot halfway through the game, and I just said, nah, not for me. Oh man, have I talked enough? My voice is dying. Here's the last thing. When you go from temple to temple on this journey to the end, and there are these sphere-based puzzles where you take a sphere and put it on a podium and take another thing and put it somewhere else and try to figure out a puzzle. Horrible. Those suck. Those were so not fun in any way. I hated them. They were incredibly slow because it's considered a cutscene when Tidus is slowly picking up a sphere, so you can't speed it up unless you got 8 times speed. And then if you do 8 times speed, you can't control your character because he's going all over the place. But also the puzzles, the logic of the puzzles, it's like nonsense. It's guesswork. It's stupid. Oh, I didn't like it. And there are like points of the game where you have to do them. Minor complaint. Like, let's talk about complaints. The sphere puzzles were bad. Lulu, Riku, and Kimari are underutilized because they're not that great. Everything else I adored. This game is fantastic. You should play it. If you never played Final Fantasy before, understand that this is not quite what the entire series has been. It's really a change of direction, but it's a change I welcome. Because story-wise, it just blows all the others out of the water. I don't think it's a competition. And with that, whew, we're done with 10. And we have taken our first steps into the PS2 era, the experimental age, where things change, where things have already changed, and they will continue to change because 11 isn't like 10 at all. And even though 11 comes after 10, we're not doing 11 next. No. I still have some time before we do the MMO. Join me next time for a little bit of a different kind of Final Fantasy, not a mainline game. Stay tuned.